Well, good day to you. It is August the 5th, and I hope wherever you are, you're doing fantastic today. My name is Gary Willing. I want to welcome you to Search for Signs, and also thank those people who have heard these videos and come back and listen to more videos and comment and that kind of thing. I really do appreciate when you guys do that. So thank you. From the bottom of my heart, I really do love and thank you for that. Now, if you want to know more about Maitreya, if you want to see if there's any truth to this information about Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom, see evidence of the many miracle signs that I talk about from time to time on this channel. If you want to read articles from Benjamin Creme's master, the same articles that I've been recording, and you find those fascinating, you can read more of them for yourself, internalize it better for yourself by going to the Share International site. You can even read letters that people have written into Benjamin Creme when he was alive, and you can read these wonderful stories that people have had from meeting Maitreya or one of these other masters, like the master from Tokyo, the master Jesus, or one of the other masters, and what they learned from their experience and how it made them feel. And it might trigger a memory that you might have had that you've forgotten about, which is kind of what happened to me when I first started this information. So if you go to the Share International site, that is where you can get all that information in one spot. The other links talk about this information and are related to it in some way, and you can go to those if you want, but the best one to go to is the Share International site. So hopefully you'll do it. They're there for you whenever you want, and it's all free. Now, if you want to join the discussion, you can post your comments, you can post your questions in the comment section, or you can email me at searchforsigns@mail.com. Now, I can actually make out the names today. So I want to thank Thomas Otto, Ricardo Pelsuasa-Lee, Lauren R., Vanessa Rivera, Rick Todd. I think that's everybody who has commented since the last time I put a video up. I really do appreciate it. All right, now, had a couple questions that came my way from Lauren R. 3276. So I'm going to start with the question about artificial intelligence, if and you don't mind there, Mr. or Ms. Lauren. Also, what do you think about artificial intelligence? Isn't it worse than pollution? So, do I think it's worse than pollution? No. Now, I understand people's reservations and their perhaps fear about what we've been hearing about artificial intelligence lately on the news and so forth, because it comes from really the movies that we've been seeing over the years. You know, the Matrix, the Terminator, all those kind of machines, are taking over and those kind of things. Is it going to be like that? No, I do not think so. Not one bit. It's just fantasy, and it's science fiction, right? Made for interesting movies. I love The Matrix. I love the Terminator movies, but do I think that's what our life's going to be like in the future because of AI? No, not at all. Now, and I'm going to read a bit of an article from Benjamin Creme's master where he talked about not so much artificial intelligence, but just automation as a whole and what it means for humanity. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But the most dangerous thing, which is more dangerous than pollution, and as Maitreya would say, it's more dangerous than a nuclear bomb, actually, is something you might not be thinking of: commercialization. That's the most dangerous thing in the world because it divides every part of humanity. It sets father against son, mother against daughter, nation against nation, racial group against racial group, because it divides economically, politically, religiously, ideologically, scientifically versus, the mystical side of life. It divides everything, and it's creating all the tensions in the world. And if left to its own devices, eventually it will destroy all life on this planet because we're not really separate and unrelated to one another. We are all one humanity. That's the truth of our existence. And that's why it's so painful for every one of us to be living at this time, because we're living so far from the norm of what we should be living, the way we should be living, which is more as one family. I know it sounds utopian when I talk about this. I know it sounds perhaps unrealistic or even untrue. But the reality is that we are all one. We are all one family. The only way, according to Maitreya, to really end the danger of commercialization is to accept the principle of sharing. The only way to bring about manifested unity on this planet is to accept the principle of sharing. And when I read a different perspective on AI coming from Ben's master, it might make a little bit more sense if you understand what sharing is. Okay, so before you turn off this channel and go somewhere else, because I know it kind of bores people when I talk about this, but it is the most important thing that we should be looking at and talking about, because it's going to set us on the correct path from when we start it into the future and forever, really, is the principle of sharing. It will free humanity up. It will start to bring about trust amongst nations and then amongst groups of people by just sharing. But what is sharing of the principle of sharing, at least initially? It's between nations. This will bring about peace, justice, and bring about peace according to the masters. And I'm going to bring a little bit of historical evidence in there to kind of perhaps make it a little more understandable and real. But every nation, according to the masters, has an excess of something that it can give to another nation freely. Every nation has a need. Some nations have more excesses than needs. Some nations have more needs than excesses. But every nation has something to give and something to get, and something that it needs. And if they just put a little bit of their excess into, make it available for other nations to use freely, it would bring about more trust amongst these nations. It would bring about justice amongst these nations, and it would eventually bring about goodwill amongst these nations and bring about peace all over the world if we just did this. So even if, and this is the other scenario that people think about when it comes to sharing, if every single man, woman, and child on this planet shared with somebody else that was unfortunate, from the rich to the poor, but the nations of themselves didn't do it, it would not bring about peace. It has to start with the nations first. So, but if you look at the Marshall Plan right after World War II, and there's a reason why I'm saying this in reference to AI. Okay, so if we look at that historical evidence that sharing does bring about peace, because the master said that's the only time that sharing was tried. Every nation that participated in it has had more of a peaceful, trusting relationship with one another since, and has not attacked one another since. We might have attacked other nations, but we didn't attack those nations that we shared with. We trust those nations better than we do any other nations on the planet. And it stopped 70 some odd years ago. So if it had been going on ongoingly, and it had been going on amongst every nation, we'd be living in a totally different world today. But the danger is not the technology of AI. The danger is the commercialization of its use. It will put millions of people out of work in all sorts of industries. Industries that people thought were safe from unemployment. Technological industries, very advanced degree. You have to have a very advanced degree to be able to work in those fields, will be wiped out and erased, because AI will be able to do it far cheaper, far faster, far better than what a person could do. And it's not just the mundane jobs. Like back in the day, back when Benjamin Creme's master even wrote the article talking about automation, it was mainly just robots in industrial kind of fields, in factories and those kind of things. Now it's spreading out to everything from writers to artists to architects. I mean, it's going to take over a lot of the workload of humanity. But then what happens to the people who are out of work? You see what I'm saying? So that's where it's not the technology. It's just the way that we are living today that's the danger. Do you see what I'm saying? So if we shared, and we have the ability to do this, because we have all the food and the resources to be able to do this, everybody's needs would be taken care of. AI and the computers would take care of the majority of the work that we've been doing individually, right? And it would free humanity up for a better life and a better way of looking at things. And I also think that the generation today, because I work with young kids in my job, they're the ones that I see entering the workforce. They have a totally different mindset than the generations of the past. And I do think they are the perfect generation for automation. They're starting to see life more as we really should. We shouldn't have to be working that much. They have absolutely zero fear of one of the things that Ben's master said in this article, the old adage, man must work or starve. They have no fear about that, where generations of the past, that was like a dark cloud that was over the top of their whole life, was that fear. if they lost their job, were laid off or whatever like this, that they could go hungry, lose their house, lose everything. Now people don't have that fear. And the younger generation definitely doesn't have that fear. So they're setting humanity up for the future where we won't ever have that thought again, because our needs will be taken care of. We'll be free, truly free to be creative, free to be who we are, to discover what not only it means to be human for ourselves, discover and really explore who we are as individuals, but also explore each other as humanity and explore the cosmos. That's really where we're headed, and we have to be free to be able to do that. The only way to be free is to bring about justice in the world, because justice and freedom are one and the same. You see? But this is what Ben's Master says. A little different perspective than perhaps the fear that we might be getting on the news about AI, and I understand why people are concerned about it. And I'm going to start where he says, where is it? He said, among the many problems with which humanity is faced, none looms larger in men's minds than that of unemployment. In the developing world, millions have never known regular work, while even in industrialized nations see each year the workless total inexorably mount. Man must work or starve, says the age-old adage. Yet need this be necessarily so? Without doubt, the main reason for increasing unemployment is the discovery and application of the new technology. More and more, the robot is replacing man in the more complex manufacturing processes. No man can compare in speed of operation and repetitive accuracy with the sophisticated machines now in use. This is as it should be. Many may lament the loss of human skills earned through long apprenticeships and training, but man is born for higher and more worthy efforts. Why should men compete with mere machines? Man is an evolving God, and foolish would it be to place limitation on his creative possibilities. Not there is, which with time he may not do. Why then lament the passing of a stage of man's long journey to perfection, which allows him at last the leisure to expand and grow? And then there's more to that article, and I actually recorded that article. It's entitled "Leisure is the Key." So if you wanted to read it for yourself, go to the Share International site. If you want to hear me read it to you, just go through the playlist of the Master's articles, and it's in there. But anyway, so to get back to your concern about it being perhaps more dangerous than pollution, it's the people, it's because we don't trust one another. It's because we feel the need, the ability that we can, not the ability, but we feel, some of us feel that it's our right to be able to exploit other people, to lie to other people, to cheat other people, to troll other people, and those kind of things. They feel like they can do that because that's how they are thriving and surviving. Well, and this might sound very idealistic, but once humanity starts to share, all those attitudes will start to fall away, one by one by one by one. As Ben's Master said, pretty much the majority of the problems of the world, once the principle of sharing starts, will be erased at a stroke. We'll trust one another so much better than we do today. And with Maitreya being the Lord of Love, already speaking to humanity in the way that he has been over the past 10 years, it might not seem like it is today, but humanity is waking up to the truth that we are one. And I don't think that AI is going to be the danger and the end of humanity as people are fearing. Just as I don't think that UFOs are here to take us over, to enslave us, those, because if they had, they would have been, if that was their intention, they would have done it a long time ago. We have no fear of that. But most of the fear that we have about UFOs and about AI and technology as a whole are coming from from Hollywood. Or actually, now I can't even say Hollywood, now from Atlanta. There's more films being filmed where I live now than there are in LA. But you get what I'm saying. They're coming from the movies that we watch. And those, especially when you watch them over and over again, you get really into it. It can seem like what they're saying is real, but it's not. It's just a fantasy. People are, they, talk about AI, people talk about The Matrix. I love that movie, The Matrix, but I also understand that it's just a fantasy. It was written by the But yet people talk about the Matrix all the time. Even people like Andrew Tate use it. Oh, the Matrix arrested me. The Matrix did. What are you talking about, man? It comes from seeing films and you can't discern between reality and fantasy. And you kind of make your own reality about it, you know? But perception is pretty much everything. But anyway, thank you very much for that. Now, your next question, which I don't mind answering, and I actually love answering these kind of questions. Can you tell us about your times when you met Maitreya? And there's a playlist that I've put together entitled My Maitreya Experiences, where I talk about them in greater detail. The one that I think is the most significant in terms of being able to share to someone who perhaps might not trust me fully, but at least it gives a sense that there's no way that I could have made this up in my own mind. Right? Because the other experiences, you could say, you just made that up. It's just an ordinary person. But when I asked Maitreya for help, and I did it through the image of his hand, and there's more information on the Share International site about that if you want to see that. But it was one of the many miracle signs that Maitreya has done and these masters have done. To me, it's the most extraordinary miracle. Because for one thing, Maitreya says it's the best way to ask for his help and his assistance by just looking at an image of the handprint of Maitreya, which, everybody needs help from time to time. I know I've asked for his help, and it's come my way very quick and fast, actually. So I'm very careful to ask the hand of Maitreya for anything because, as they say, be careful what you wish for. You might just get it, But it's extraordinary in that way, but it's also extraordinary because I don't have to fly to Barcelona, Spain and see the original. I can just see it from an image off of my computer or the printout that I have framed in my room and so forth. But anyway, I asked the hand of Maitreya for help for getting trash in this building that I was cleaning at the time. And I never saw him. He came at a time when I wasn't even at the building. Somebody else saw him getting the trash. I just saw that the trash was gone. And I didn't think, oh my gosh, that was Maitreya who helped me. It wasn't until a month or so later when the person who actually saw Maitreya was thinking that he was one of my coworkers. Because she had seen him clean or get the trash out of that side of the building for about a week, the time that I noticed that there was no trash. I personally thought at the time that the group of people that work for the DOT or not the Department of Transportation. Anyway, I guess they were part of the DOT, but they handled airports and landing strips, and they had these. Anyway, it's a long story, but that's kind of what they did. And I thought they were away from the office for that week, and that's why there was no trash. But yet it was Maitreya who came and cleaned the trash for me, and it made all the difference. It was something very small that he did from the general scheme of things that he could have done, right? He didn't clean the toilets. Yeah, I had to still clean the toilets, but it made all the difference in the world. But I never saw him. Somebody else did. And so when she came to me and she told me that there was a guy that was cleaning the building, and the story is in the, if you want to hear more about it, you can go to the video about it. But the times that I've met Maitreya, the two that he said something that I've really looked at and used and tried to learn from and grow. The first one was just before he actually made his first television appearance. He said I saw him as this young man, African-American man. He was about 6'2", kind of thin, wonderful skin. That's what I remember the most. His skin was flawless, and he had the most beautiful smile, very authentic, those kind of things. It didn't seem fake or contrived. It seemed like a real, he was genuinely happy, to smile. And every experience that I've had with Maitreya, he's always had this energy about him that sometimes it's quite exciting to be around. And I can't sleep for days after seeing him sometimes. But anyway, this one time was one of those times. But anyway, when I saw him, one thing that he said to me was, he goes, "You're going to see me on TV real soon, and we're going to change the world together," is one thing that he said. And then he was talking about a bunch of stuff when it came to, he's talking about the peace rally and how these people were getting together and stuff. And he interrupted himself And he said, I never judge anyone on whether they're good or bad. I only notice the good things that they do. And I've said this multiple times in these videos, is I did not understand why he was saying that to me, other than the fact that I had said that to him, that there's no way that he could see me as how do I say it? I was just going through a very low state in my life as a person who was doing this work. I just wasn't doing enough, and I said something to the effect of, I don't even see myself as your disciple. I'm not doing anything, and I felt really guilty about it. And this was some years ago. And he said, I never judge anyone on whether they're good or bad. I only notice the good things that they do. And I thought at first it was in reference to what I had said, which I think it was. Then I started thinking that maybe he was saying it because people think that the Christ is going to come back as the judge, as to judge the wicked and reward the faithful. I do think he was talking about that too. He never judges anyone whether good or bad. He only notices the good things that you do. But the thing that I really took to heart eventually, not right away, but eventually when I started to really think about it, was he was giving me the first steps to learning how to love unconditionally. And I started to apply it to people in my life, especially coworkers. And when I did, it changed my relationship with them. People who I was having very extreme difficulties with. I started to notice one thing that they were doing right, and then two things. And then I would have difficulty with somebody else, and I would say, let me try this. Let me see if this works on them. And sure as a world, it would change the way that I would see them. They would soften toward me, because they weren't picking up on my thoughts that I was being critical of them. I was starting to love them. And you get back what you put out. If you're critical and you're angry toward people in that way, and you speak that criticism to other people and so forth, or to that person, you can't expect them to be all lovey-dovey back to you. It doesn't work like that. But when you start to think loving thoughts towards somebody, or like I said, it just started with just thinking of one or two good things that they did right or did something good. It made me less critical of them, and their attitude toward me changed. Ben's master said in one of his articles, nothing pierces the veil of unity like criticism. You know what I'm saying? So the times that I am critical, I try to remember what he said, and I will use that for the rest of my life. That's why I share it with everybody. Hopefully you guys are at least just try it and see if it works. People always want evidence of Maitreya being on TV. The evidence of who he really is in the teachings of what he's saying. Without sharing, there will be no justice. Without justice, there will be no peace. Without peace, there will be no future. Is that true? Go back and look at the Marshall Plan. That's historically evident. When humanity tries it again, I guarantee you it's going to work. It's not going to blow up in anybody's faces. Trying what we're doing today is not working, right? It's leading us to the point of destruction. So why do we continue on doing it? You know what I mean? So if you're critical, that I think is one way to at least try to help with that. And then the other time I saw him that I really learned something from is when he said he was coming. I saw him at work, and he said to me, he goes, and I was very stressful. I was going through a very stressful time in my own personal life and even at work. And he looked at me and he goes, peace always starts from within. And then he walks out. It was a little bit more dramatic than the way that I said it. He kind of said it rather loudly and smacked his hand on the counter and that kind of thing. But I think about that all the time. Peace always comes from within. You can't expect the external to give you any internal peace. It's not going to work, right? But the other thing I had another experience not too long ago, and I found it's kind of a long story to set up, but anyway, I found my baby book, and the first photo of me, I have my hands in a fist, and the way that they are positioned in this photo of me, which was taken a long time ago, it looks like I'm a boxer. Like one is up by my head, protecting my head, and the other one's getting ready to punch you, right? And I said to my wife when I saw this picture, I said, wow, it's like I've been fighting my whole life. Right? That's exactly what I said. And sometime later, I saw Maitreya out in public, and he starts screaming my name from a long way away. I'd never seen this guy before. And he was like, Gary! Gary! Like screaming like that. And he comes running up to me, and he's got this wonderful energy, and he puts his hands in the same position that they were in my baby photo. And he goes, and he starts kind of shadow boxing me a little bit. And he goes, man, Gary, it's like you've been fighting your whole life. And then he said, you're starting to learn what I learned a long time ago, is what he said. And so it gave me a lot of hope about everything. And then he kind of, did a couple of things and put his hand around, around my shoulder and so forth like this. But the times that I saw him, most of the times were very simple, very brief encounters. But the one that there was one time when I was playing music at a hotel where he sat down for over an hour and talked to me about a lot of things. I knew instantly it was Maitreya, because once when I said, thought to myself, is that Maitreya? When I saw him walking around this hotel, his head snapped over and looked right at me and made eye contact, and he came right over to me. But the first thing he said it was breaking his heart that people were spending so much money on food and alcohol, but yet some people go to bed hungry every night. And then we started talking about other things. He started giving me some really dumb jokes, like I like to do. But the one thing, he started kind of talking about arts and painting and so forth. And he talked about Picasso and Rembrandt, which is something I've always been fascinated with. And he encouraged me to start painting. And so I did. And that's changed my life in that way. But as he was, and this story is, you can get more information about this story, again, too, from the My Maitreya Experience playlist that I have. But anyway, toward the end, he just all of a sudden interrupts himself and he goes, I got to go. I'm really busy. And I look at my time, and it was about time for me to, for my break to stop and for me to start, to go back and play on the set. And as we're walking out, he got shorter as we were walking. So first he was taller than me. He looked like he was about 6'2", 6'3". I'm 6 feet. And then by the time we were walking out the door, he was about the same height as my shoulder. It was really weird. It was a very weird experience. But he said to me, it was so funny. He goes, my job is to find treasure among the trash. And I knew he was talking about humanity, right? He goes, he goes, I have a lot of things at home. I'll have to find something to give to you. Can you send me your address or give me your address? And he said, tell me your address. I'll remember it. That's what he said. Tell me your address and I'll send you something. And I told him my address, and I thought to myself, I would love a Picasso painting, which is something that I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to find like rare, art at somebody's, garage sale or something like that, or at Goodwill or something, find like the $5 million piece of art that somebody threw away, that kind of thing. And I thought that to myself, and he goes, I can't give you a Picasso painting, Gary. But I'll find something to give you. And there was other things in there too that he talked about that I found very encouraging. But, if you want to really read, or if you want to really, experience some of these Maitreya experiences for yourself, don't just take my word for it. Go to the Share International site. There's actually a whole section of people that have written their articles in for years about some of their experiences. And some of those experiences that people have written in have changed my life because I've applied what he said to them. And so I always say this to people, because if people, not always, but a lot of times I'll tell my stories to people, and, oh, I wish I could have had experiences like that. And they probably did and just didn't remember it. But because he's met with millions of people, all over the world, all walks of life. He's met with people. You probably have seen them. Other people have probably seen them and so forth. Maybe remembered them, maybe didn't. But you can learn so much about the teachings of Maitreya from what these people are saying. Ordinary people. It's quite extraordinary. People always went right to Ben for what the masters had to say and what Maitreya had to say about such and such and such and such. But a lot of times people miss what he's already starting to say. And it's not just Maitreya, it's some of these other masters too, like the master from Tokyo, the master Jesus, and some of these other masters. Even Ben's master had met with a couple people as in guises on the subway in London and so forth. And some of the things that they say are quite extraordinary. Speaking of the Matrix, to get back to AI, one of the things that Ben's master said to somebody who wrote it in, thinking it was Maitreya, but it was Ben's master, he said, just like it said in the movie The Matrix, and I love this line. He goes, I'm only concerned about one thing, the future, and the only way to get there is together. That's what I'm saying, man. You can get so much information from just reading some of these stories that people have written. Quite extraordinary. Quite extraordinary. Anyway, I love you guys. Thank you so much for the questions, Lauren. You guys have a wonderful day, and I look forward to more questions and comments in the future. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.